Lines left upon a seat by William Wordsworth. Nigh traveller rest at his lonely duty strands, far from all human dwelling. What if here no sparkling rivulet spread with verdant herb? What if these barren boughs there be not laughs? Yet as the wind breath soft, the curling waves that break against the shore, shall lull the mind by one soft impulse safe from vacancy. Who he was that peeled these stones, and with the mossy sod first covered hour, and taught this aged tree, no wild, to bend its arms in circling shade, I well remember. He was the one who owned no common soul. In youth by genius nursed, and big with lofty views, he to the world went forth, pure in his heart against the taint of dissolute Huns, gainst jealousy and hate and scorn, against all enemies prepared, all but neglected. And so his spirit damned at once, with rash disdain he turned away, the foot of pride sustained his soul in solitude. Stranger, these gloomy boughs had charms for him, and here loved to sit, his only visitants a straggling sheep, a stone shed of a glancing sandpiper, and on these barren rocks of juniper and heath and thistle, thinly sprinkling o'er, fixing his downward eye, many an hour a more pleasure nourished, tracing here an emblem of his own unfruitful life. And lifting up his head, he then would gaze on the more distant scene, how lovely 'tis was ceased, and he would gaze till it became more lovelier, sight could not sustain the beauty still more beauteous. Nor that time would he forget those beings, to whose minds, warm from the labours of benevolence, the world and man himself appeared a scene of kindred loveliness. And he would sigh with mournful joy, to think that others felt what he must never feel, and so lost man. On visionary views would fancy feed, till his eyes streamed with tears, and with deep veil lie dead, the seat his only monument. And for we one who saw the holy forms of young imagination have kept pure stranger, henceforth be warned and know that pride, are disguised in its own majesty is littleness, but he who feels contempt for any living thing have faculties which he has never used, that forth of him is in his infancy. The man whose eye is ever on himself doth look on one, the least of nature's works, one who might move the wise man to that scorn which wisdom holds unlawful ever. Oh, be wiser thou, instructed that true knowledge leads to love, true dignity abides with him alone, who, in the silent hour of inward thought, can still suspect and still reveal himself in lowliness of heart.